I walked into my house and found my pregnant wife lying in a pool of blood on the kitchen floor. Her face was unrecognizable, swollen, purple, covered in bruises. She was clutching her stomach, whispering the same words over and over. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, the baby. A decorated police officer did this to her during a traffic stop, and he had no idea who I really was. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. The mission had been classified. 18 days in hostile territory doing things I'll never talk about. Black Ops doesn't come with parades or homecomings. You just slip back into normal life carrying weight that never leaves. I opened my front door around 10 at night. The house was dark except for a dim light from the kitchen. Something felt wrong immediately. The air was too still, too quiet. Eliza? No answer. I moved through the hallway, every sense on alert. Living room empty. Bathroom empty. Then I reached the kitchen doorway, and my world stopped. Blood. Everywhere. My wife was curled on the tile floor, barely moving. Her maternity dress torn and soaked red. Her face beaten so badly I almost didn't recognize her. One eye swollen completely shut. Her lips split wide open. Bruises like dark fingerprints covered her arms and throat. Eliza. I dropped beside her, hands shaking. What happened? Who did this? She looked at me with her one good eye, and I saw something worse than pain. I saw shame. The baby, she whispered. Ryder, the baby's gone. Everything inside me went cold. I looked down and realized the blood wasn't just from her face. It was pooling beneath her, coming from. No. I called an ambulance. She managed through broken sobs. They're coming. I couldn't. I tried to get up, but I couldn't move. I'm so sorry. Sorry? Baby, who did this to you? She flinched away from my hand, like she was afraid I'd hurt her too. Tell me who. You can't go after him. Promise me. Promise me you won't. Who? Officer Dominic Crane. The name hit me like a bullet. Dominic Crane. I knew that name. Everyone in town knew that name. 15-year veteran. Decorated hero. The face of community policing. The guy who handed out Halloween candy and posed for pictures at the county fair. That Dominic Crane did this to my wife. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. What happened? I asked, forcing my voice steady. He pulled me over. Said my taillight was broken. I gave him my license, but he kept yelling at me. Said I was too slow. Disrespectful. He dragged me out of the car, Ryder. I told him I was pregnant. I begged him. He didn't care. He put his knee on my back and she couldn't finish. Just sobbed while I held her carefully, terrified I'd hurt her more. The paramedics arrived. They took over, asking questions, checking vitals, loading her onto a stretcher. I followed them to the ambulance, my hands still covered in her blood. At the hospital, they rushed her into emergency surgery. I sat in the waiting room for 3 hours before a doctor came out, exhaustion written all over his face. Mr. Ryder? I'm Dr. Preston. Your wife is stable, but I'm very sorry. The trauma was too severe. She's lost the pregnancy. Our son. We were going to name him Adrian. And Eliza? She'll recover physically, but the injury she sustained. He paused, choosing words carefully. This wasn't an accident. Someone hurt her deliberately, brutally. Have you contacted the police? I almost laughed. The police. Right. They let me see her around 3 in the morning. She was awake, staring at the ceiling with her one good eye. Bandages covered half her face. Monitors beeped softly. Hey, I said, sitting beside her bed. You're still here. Where else would I be? I thought you'd go after him. Do something stupid. Tell me exactly what happened. Everything. She took a shaky breath. I was driving home from the grocery store on Maple Road. His lights came on behind me. I pulled over. He came to my window and said my taillight was out. Asked for my license and registration. I reached for my purse and he started screaming at me. Said I was moving too slow. Reaching for a weapon maybe. I tried to explain, but he just kept yelling. Then what? He ordered me out of the car. I told him I was 6 months pregnant. He didn't care. He grabbed my arm and yanked me out. I fell. Started crying. He said I was resisting arrest and put his knee on my back. I couldn't breathe. I kept saying I was pregnant and he hit me. In the ribs. In the face. Over and over. Her voice broke completely. I felt something tear inside me. Felt the pain. Knew immediately something was wrong with the baby. When he finally let me up, he leaned close and said if I reported this, he'd make sure I got arrested for assaulting an officer. Said his dash cam would prove I attacked him first. Said his entire department would back him up and I'd lose everything. Did anyone see? Cars passed by, but no one stopped. He let me get back in my car and told me to think real carefully about what happens to people who make false accusations. Then he just left, like nothing happened. I stood up, kissed her forehead gently. Get some rest. Where are you going? To file a report. Ryder, no. You heard what he said. They'll protect him. They always protect their own. Then I'll make sure they can't. She grabbed my wrist. Please. I already lost our baby. I can't lose you too. I looked at my wife, the strongest person I'd ever known, reduced to this broken, terrified shell, and made her a promise. I won't do anything stupid. Because what I was planning wasn't stupid. It was calculated, strategic, precise. Officer Dominic Crane thought his badge made him untouchable. He thought he could beat my pregnant wife, kill my unborn son, and face no consequences. He had no idea who he'd just made an enemy of. No idea I'd spent a decade learning how to hunt men who thought they were above justice. No idea that I had training, resources, and connections most people only see in movies. I walked out of that hospital with one thought burning in my mind. Dominic Crane's career, his reputation, his entire life. I was going to systematically destroy all of it. And he'd never see me coming. The police station smelled like stale coffee and corruption. I walked through those doors at 8 in the morning, sleep-deprived and running on pure rage. The desk sergeant barely glanced up from his computer. Help you. I need to file a report. Police brutality. Excessive force. That got his attention. His eyes narrowed. Against who? Officer Dominic Crane. He assaulted my pregnant wife during a traffic stop yesterday. She lost our baby because of him. The temperature in the room dropped. The sergeant stared at me for a long moment, then picked up his phone without breaking eye contact. Wait here. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Captain Victor Hayes in a windowless office that felt more like an interrogation room. He was maybe 55, gray hair, cold eyes, and the kind of face that had seen everything and stopped caring years ago. Mr. Ryder, he said, leaning back in his chair. You have a complaint about Officer Crane. He beat my wife during a routine traffic stop. Put her in the hospital. She miscarried because of the trauma he caused. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. My wife has medical records. Photos of her injuries. Witness testimony. Hayes opened a thin folder on his desk. Interesting. Because Officer Crane filed his own report last night. Says he pulled over a vehicle for a broken taillight. The driver became verbally abusive and physically aggressive when asked to step out. He used appropriate force to control the situation. That's a lie. Is it? He slid a paper across the desk. This is Officer Crane's sworn statement. 15 years of service. Spotless record. Multiple commendations for bravery and community service. Not a single sustained complaint. Then your system for handling complaints is broken. Hayes's expression didn't change. You mentioned witnesses. Who saw this alleged assault? Traffic on Maple Road. Multiple cars passed during the incident. Did any of them stop? File reports. Come forward. No, but so you have no witnesses. What about video evidence? Surely your wife recorded it on her phone. She was terrified. Being beaten. She wasn't thinking about recording. Of course. Hayes pulled another document. Officer Crane's dash cam footage would clear this up. Unfortunately, there was a technical malfunction. The file was corrupted. I stared at him. How convenient. Technology fails sometimes. It's unfortunate, but it happens. He closed the folder. Here's what I see, Mr. Ryder. Your wife had a medical emergency. A miscarriage. Tragic, absolutely. But turning that tragedy into false accusations against a decorated officer won't bring your baby back. You're not going to investigate. There's nothing to investigate. Officer Crane followed proper protocol. If your wife sustained injuries, perhaps she should have complied with lawful orders instead of resisting. This conversation is over. You're covering for him. Hayes stood up. I'm going to pretend you didn't just accuse me of corruption. You're grieving, not thinking clearly. But if you continue making baseless accusations, we'll have to consider charges for harassment and filing a false police report. Do you understand? I left that station knowing exactly what I was dealing with. This wasn't incompetence. This was institutional protection. They'd already decided the story before I walked in. Dominic was their guy, and they'd bury anyone who threatened him. At home, Eliza was curled on the couch, staring at nothing. I told her what happened at the station. She didn't even look surprised. I told you, she whispered. They always protect each other. We can't win against this. Yes, we can. How? They have all the power. The badges. The system. What do we have? The truth. And I know people who can help. I spent the next 2 days making calls. My old unit commander, a military lawyer I'd worked with overseas, a friend in military intelligence. Each conversation ended the same way. Ryder, walk away. You can't beat a corrupt police department. They have unlimited resources. You'll destroy yourself trying. But one person gave me different advice. Grant Lawson, my former commander, said something that changed my approach. If Crane has been doing this for years, you're not his first victim. Find the others. Build a pattern. One incident they can bury. Multiple victims? That's harder to ignore. So I started digging. Public records, court documents, local news archives, complaint databases, social media posts from people in our town mentioning bad experiences with police. And there it was, a trail of victims going back 5 years. Natalie Garcia filed a brutality complaint 3 years ago. Case dismissed. Jocelyn Park reported excessive force during a traffic stop. No action taken. Lila Chun claimed Crane broke her arm during an arrest. Insufficient evidence. Morgan Ellis. Hospitalization after a resisting arrest incident. Complaint withdrawn. 8 women total. Different ages. Different backgrounds. All with the same story. Dominic Crane hurt them, and the system made it disappear. I printed everything and spread it across my kitchen table. Photos of bruised faces. Medical records. Complaint forms stamped unfounded or insufficient evidence. Eliza shuffled into the kitchen around midnight, saw the documents, and froze. What is this? Proof you weren't his first victim. He's been doing this for years. She picked up Natalie's photo, hands trembling. All these women, and nothing happened to him. The department buried every complaint. But if we can get these women to come forward together, they can't ignore us anymore. They'll just protect him again. Not if I go over their heads. State police, FBI, media. Someone will listen. Eliza looked at me with hollow eyes. And what if they don't? What if we go through all this, and he still wins? I didn't have an answer for that. The harassment started 2 days later. I was driving to meet with a lawyer when a patrol car pulled me over. Different officer, not Crane, but wearing the same smug expression. License and registration. What's the problem? You were speeding. I was going 5 under the limit. Not according to my radar. Step out of the vehicle. He made me stand on the side of the road for 40 minutes, running my information, checking my car, asking pointless questions. Finally let me go with a warning and a smile that said we can do this whenever we want. It happened again the next day, and the day after that. Different cops, different excuses, same message. Eliza stopped leaving the house. She'd sit by the window, watching for patrol cars, jumping at every sound. I watched my strong, independent wife turn into someone I didn't recognize. They're breaking us, she said one night. Maybe we should just move. Start over somewhere else. And let him keep destroying people. She didn't answer. That's when I found the first victim willing to talk. Natalie Garcia had moved to the next county, changed her phone number, tried to disappear. When I finally tracked her down and explained who I was, she agreed to meet at a quiet diner. She looked exhausted, older than her years, like someone who'd been running for too long. "He ruined my life," she said quietly. 3 years later, I'm still scared every time I see a police car. "Tell me what happened." "Pulled me over for speeding. I was polite, gave him my license, but he kept finding reasons to keep me there. Kept asking personal questions. Where was I going? Did I have a boyfriend? Was I always this pretty?" I got uncomfortable and asked if I could leave. He yanked me out of my car and slammed me against the hood. Broke 2 ribs. "Did you report it?" "Filed a complaint the next day. Had medical records. Even had a witness. Another driver saw everything." "You know what happened?" "Internal Affairs called me a liar. My witness suddenly couldn't remember anything. My complaint vanished. I'm building a case. Multiple victims. Would you testify?" Fear flooded her face. "You don't understand. After I reported him, I got pulled over constantly. 17 times in 6 months. Always different officers. Always let go with warnings. It was coordinated harassment. They wanted me to know they could get to me anytime. So I moved. Changed everything. And you're asking me to put myself back in their crosshairs. He killed my son. If we don't stop him, he'll keep doing this forever." Natalie's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry about your baby. I really am. But I can't help you. I won't survive going through that again." She left without finishing her coffee. I had similar conversations with 3 other victims over the next week. All too scared. All too traumatized. All convinced the system would crush them again. I was starting to understand why Dominic felt invincible. Then I got a call from an unknown number. "Is this Ryder?" "Who's asking?" "My name is Quinn Foster. I'm a paralegal. I heard you're investigating Officer Crane. I have information you need." I met Quinn Foster at a park 2 miles outside town. She was young, maybe late 20s, nervous energy radiating off her as she glanced around like someone might be watching. "Thanks for coming," she said, sitting on a bench far from anyone else. "You said you have information about Crane." She pulled a flash drive from her jacket pocket. "A year ago, my law firm took on a civil rights case against the police department. A woman claimed Officer Crane brutalized her during an arrest. We had medical records, photos, witnesses. It was solid. What happened? The case never made it to court. Our client suddenly dropped the lawsuit, took a settlement, signed a non-disclosure agreement, then moved 3 states away like she was running for her life. They paid her off. That's what I think. But before she dropped it, I made copies of everything. Medical reports, photos of her injuries, witness statements, all of it." She handed me the flash drive. "It's all on here. This is illegal. You could lose your job." I watched that woman walk into our office terrified and broken. Then I watched the system crush her again. Someone needs to hold these people accountable. She stood to leave. "One more thing. There's a lieutenant in Internal Affairs named Blake Morrison. He's Crane's brother-in-law. He's the one who makes complaints disappear. Every investigation into Crane goes through him first." After she left, I sat staring at the flash drive. Real evidence, but also confirmation the corruption ran deeper than one cop. At home, I plugged the drive into my laptop. What I found made my blood run cold. The woman's name was Ivy Thompson, 28 years old, pulled over for a broken headlight. Crane's report claimed she attacked him. The photos told a different story. Her face beaten worse than Eliza's. Broken nose, fractured jaw, 3 cracked ribs. Hospital report noted injuries inconsistent with subject's statement of falling during arrest. But there were witness statements too. A driver named Oliver Hayes saw the whole thing. Watched Crane drag Ivy from her car and beat her while she begged him to stop. Oliver came forward, gave a statement, was ready to testify. Then suddenly he recanted everything. Said he'd been mistaken. Hadn't seen anything clearly. The pattern was obvious. Crane hurt people. Witnesses got intimidated. Evidence disappeared. Cases died. I spent 3 days going through everything on that drive, cross-referencing it with the victims I'd already found. Then I made a chart connecting all the dots. 8 confirmed victims over 5 years. All women, all minorities or vulnerable targets. All their complaints handled by Lieutenant Blake Morrison. All dismissed as unfounded. This wasn't just one bad cop. This was systematic protection of a predator. I printed everything and took it to Eliza. She'd been improving slowly, starting therapy, trying to function. When she saw what I'd found, something shifted in her eyes. He's done this to 8 other women? At least 8. Probably more who never reported it. She studied the photos, the medical records, the pattern of abuse. We need to find them. Talk to them. Make them understand they're not alone. Most of them are too scared. Then we make them brave. She looked at me with determination I hadn't seen since before the assault. Woman to woman, maybe they'll trust me. Maybe if they know someone else survived and is fighting back, they'll join us. It took 2 weeks, but we tracked down Natalie Garcia again. This time Eliza came with me. When Natalie saw Eliza's still healing face, something broke in her. He did that to you too? Eliza nodded. And he killed my baby. Just like he broke your ribs and destroyed your life. But I'm not hiding anymore. And I'm not letting him get away with it. Natalie started crying. I'm so tired of being scared. Then be angry instead, Eliza said quietly. Help us stop him. Natalie agreed to testify. So did Jocelyn Park once she heard about the other victims. Then Morgan Ellis. Then 2 more women whose names I'd found in public records. But I still needed someone who could make this impossible to ignore. Someone whose testimony would blow the case wide open. That's when I discovered Harper Mitchell. She was 19, a college student, and according to her social media posts, Crane had pulled her over 4 times in the past 6 weeks. Each post mentioned feeling unsafe. Watched. Hunted. I sent her a private message explaining who I was. She responded immediately. He's following me. I see his patrol car everywhere. Outside my dorm. Near my classes. At the grocery store. I'm terrified. We met at a coffee shop the next day. Harper was young, but had the kind of fire in her eyes that reminded me of soldiers who refused to break. Why is he targeting you? I asked. Because I filed a complaint after the first time he pulled me over. He was inappropriate. Made comments about how I looked. Asked if I had a boyfriend. Said he could make my speeding ticket disappear if I was friendly. I told him no and reported it. What happened? Internal Affairs called me in. Some lieutenant named Morrison. He accused me of lying to avoid a ticket. Said if I kept pushing it, they'd charge me with filing a false report. So I dropped it. But Crane didn't stop. He keeps finding me. Keeps pulling me over for nothing. Always lets me go with a smile that makes my skin crawl. I showed her the evidence I collected. The other victims. The pattern. The systematic cover-up. We're building a federal case, I said. Multiple victims. Pattern of abuse. Institutional corruption. But I need one more piece. I need him caught in the act with everything recorded. Harper's hands shook around her coffee cup. You want me to be bait. I want you to help us stop him before he hurts someone else. Before he does to another woman what he did to my wife. She looked at Eliza, at her healing bruises, and made her decision. Tell me what to do. We set up a plan. Harper would drive her usual routes. I'd follow at a distance in an unmarked car. She'd wear a concealed recording device. When Crane pulled her over next, we'd capture everything. 3 days later, Harper texted, "He's behind me. Lights on." I watched from a quarter-mile back as Crane's patrol car pulled her over on a quiet road outside town. Through binoculars, I saw him approach her window. Saw him lean in too close. Saw her hand him her license. Then he ordered her out of the car. My pulse hammered. This was it. He was going to show everyone exactly who he was. Harper stepped out. Crane circled her like prey, talking, gesturing. Then he grabbed her arm. She tried to pull away. He jerked her closer, his face inches from hers. I could see her terrified expression even from this distance. He was threatening her, assaulting her, and it was all being recorded. Then another patrol car pulled up behind Crane's vehicle. Lieutenant Blake Morrison stepped out. Everything changed in that moment. This wasn't just Crane anymore. This was both of them. The corrupt cop and the man who protected him. Together. I grabbed my phone and called the one person who could help us now. Grant, I need that FBI contact. Right now. What's happening? I've got a corrupt cop assaulting a witness with his internal affairs handler watching. Both on video. But if I don't get federal protection for this girl immediately, they're going to destroy her. Send me your location. I'll make the call. Harper was still standing there, both officers surrounding her, when I got the text back. FBI en route. Keep recording. Don't intervene unless her life is in danger. I watched through those binoculars, every muscle in my body screaming to move, while Harper faced down two corrupt cops who thought they were untouchable. But what they didn't know was that their entire conversation was being recorded in crystal clear audio, and federal agents were already on their way. Harper stood frozen on that roadside while Crane and Morrison circled her like wolves. Through my phone, I could hear everything her wire picked up. You just don't learn, do you? Crane's voice was cold. Filing complaints. Talking to lawyers. Telling people I'm harassing you. I haven't talked to anyone, Harper said, trying to keep her voice steady. Don't lie to me. Morrison stepped closer. We know you've been in contact with Ryder, the guy whose wife made up stories about Officer Crane. She didn't make anything up. Crane grabbed her arm hard enough to make her gasp. Careful. Contradicting a police officer during a stop is dangerous. People get hurt that way. My hand was on the door handle. Every instinct screamed to intervene. But Grant's voice came through my earpiece. Federal agents are 2 minutes out. Hold position. We need them to keep talking. Harper pulled her arm free, voice shaking but defiant. You can't keep doing this to people. Doing what? Morrison laughed. Conducting traffic stops? That's our job. Threatening me. Following me. Making me afraid to leave my dorm. Sounds like paranoia, Crane said. Maybe you should see someone about that. Young girl like you, making wild accusations against respected officers? That's concerning behavior. Multiple people have filed complaints against you. Crane moved fast, backing her against her car. And every single one was proven false. You know why? Because they were lies told by criminals trying to avoid consequences. Just like you're lying right now. I have proof you've been following me. Prove it. Morrison crossed his arms. Show me one piece of evidence that Officer Crane has done anything inappropriate. I've documented every what? Every time you happen to see a patrol car? In a town with active police presence. Morrison shook his head. That's not harassment. That's you being paranoid. And if you keep pushing this narrative, we'll have to consider whether you're stable enough to be driving. Might need to suspend your license. For public safety. It was the same playbook they'd used on every victim. Intimidation disguised as concern. Threats wrapped in official authority. Harper's voice cracked. Why are you doing this? Crane leaned close. Because girls like you need to understand how the world works. You don't get to disrespect authority and walk away. You don't get to make accusations without consequences. Your life? Your safety? That depends on people like us. And right now, you're making very poor choices about who to trust. Is that a threat? It's advice. Go home. Stop talking to Ryder. Stop spreading lies. And maybe you'll finish college without any more problems. But if you keep going down this path. He trailed off, letting the implication hang. 2 black SUVs pulled up behind the patrol cars. Doors opened. FBI agents in tactical vests emerged. Federal agents. A woman's voice cut through the tension. Step away from the civilian. Now. Crane and Morrison spun around, hands moving toward their weapons before they registered the FBI badges. Confusion flashed across their faces. Agent Paige Thornton approached with 4 other agents flanking her. Officer Dominic Crane. Lieutenant Blake Morrison. You're both under investigation by the FBI Civil Rights Division. Investigation for what? Morrison demanded. We were conducting a routine traffic stop. A traffic stop that involved threats, intimidation, and assault. All recorded. Thornton gestured to Harper. This young woman has been wearing a wire for the past 15 minutes. We have everything you just said. The color drained from Crane's face. You have no jurisdiction here, Morrison said. but his voice lacked conviction. This is a local matter. Deprivation of rights under color of law is a federal crime, as is conspiracy to obstruct justice, which is what you've been doing for years. Thornton pulled out a folder thick with documents. We have 8 victims ready to testify. Medical records, photos, recordings, and thanks to your conversation just now, we have you both on tape threatening and assaulting a witness in a federal investigation. Crane found his voice. That wire is illegal. Entrapment. Miss Mitchell consented to wear it. And entrapment requires law enforcement to induce someone to commit a crime they weren't already predisposed to commit. You've been stalking and threatening her for weeks. We just gave you another opportunity to show everyone who you really are. Thornton turned to Harper. You okay? Harper nodded, tears streaming down her face. I got it all. Good. We'll need your statement. Thornton looked back at the 2 cops. You're not under arrest yet, but you will be. Federal warrants are being prepared. In the meantime, you're both suspended pending investigation. Badges and weapons. Now, you can't do this, Morrison said, but he was already unbuckling his duty belt. Watch me. I got out of my car and walked toward the scene. Crane saw me coming and rage contorted his features. You set this up. I documented your crimes. There's a difference. You recorded a private conversation without consent. That's illegal wiretapping. Actually, it's not, Agent Thornton interjected. Miss Mitchell consented to the recording. And in this state, only one party needs to consent. You should know that, being a police officer and all. Crane stepped toward me, fury radiating off him. You have no idea what you've done. The department will destroy you. I have friends. Your friends are under investigation too, Thornton said calmly. We've been building this case for 6 months. Mr. Ryder just gave us the final piece we needed. Morrison grabbed Crane's arm. Don't say anything else. We need lawyers. Good idea, Thornton agreed. You're both going to need very good lawyers. Harper walked over to me on shaking legs. Is it really over? Not yet, but we're close. Agent Thornton approached. Mr. Ryder, I need you and your wife to come to the federal building tomorrow. We're proceeding with formal charges. I'll need detailed statements from both of you. What about the other victims? We'll be interviewing all of them, building a comprehensive case. This isn't just about Crane anymore. We're looking at systematic civil rights violations, institutional corruption, and conspiracy. This goes all the way up. I watched as Crane and Morrison drove away in their personal vehicles, no longer cops, but civilians under federal scrutiny. Everything they'd built, the power, the protection, the fear they'd used to control people, it was crumbling. But I knew this was just the beginning. The real fight would be in court. That night, I told Eliza everything. She sat quietly, processing it all, then said something that surprised me. I want to testify. In person. In court. I want him to see my face when I tell everyone what he did to me. You don't have to. We have enough. I need to. For me. For our son. For every woman he hurt. She took my hand. He took my voice that day on the road. I'm taking it back. 3 days later, federal agents raided the police department. They seized files, computers, evidence logs. 6 other officers were suspended. Captain Hayes was placed on administrative leave. The local news exploded with the story. Crane's picture was everywhere. Decorated officer under federal investigation for civil rights violations. Then something unexpected happened. More victims came forward. Women who'd been too scared before saw the FBI taking action and found courage. By the end of the week, we had 14 women willing to testify. But Dominic wasn't going quietly. His lawyer held a press conference, called the investigation a witch hunt, said his client was a hero being persecuted by criminals and troublemakers, said Ryder was an unstable veteran with PTSD manipulating vulnerable women. The department's union backed him, said the FBI was overreaching, called for protests supporting officers targeted by false accusations. Part of me expected this. They were circling wagons, protecting one of their own, even with overwhelming evidence. But Agent Thornton was unfazed. Let them spin whatever story they want. We have facts, and facts win in federal court. The indictments came down 2 weeks later. Officer Dominic Crane, 8 counts of deprivation of rights under color of law, assault, battery, witness intimidation. Lieutenant Blake Morrison, conspiracy to obstruct justice, evidence tampering, witness intimidation. Both facing decades in federal prison if convicted. The trial was set for 3 months out, and that's when Crane made his biggest mistake. He came to my house one last time. It was 2 in the morning when headlights swept across our bedroom window. I was awake instantly, years of combat training kicking in. Eliza stirred beside me. What is it? Stay here. I moved to the window and looked out. A car sat idling across the street. Not a patrol car. A civilian sedan. But I recognized the silhouette behind the wheel. Dominic Crane. He sat there for 10 minutes, engine running, just watching our house. Then he drove away slowly, making sure I saw him leave. The message was clear, federal indictment or not, he could still get to us. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. The next morning, Agent Thornton called. Crane violated his bail conditions by coming near you. We're filing a motion to revoke bail and remand him to custody. Will it work? His lawyers will fight it. But showing up at a witness's house at 2 a.m.? That's witness intimidation. The judge won't like it. But before the hearing could happen, I got a call that changed everything. Mr. Ryder? This is Harper. Something's wrong. What happened? There's another girl. A freshman named Ivy. Crane pulled her over last week, before his indictment. She just posted about it on social media. He's been following her, texting her from unknown numbers. She's terrified and doesn't know who to tell. My blood went cold. Even under federal indictment, he was still hunting. Send me her information. Ivy Turner was 18, a freshman studying nursing, and when I met her at a campus coffee shop, she looked like she hadn't slept in days. How did you find me? She asked nervously. Harper Mitchell told me what's happening. I'm building a case against Officer Crane. You're not alone. Tears filled her eyes. I thought I was going crazy. My friend said I was paranoid. Tell me everything. He pulled me over 2 weeks ago. Said I ran a stop sign, but I didn't. He kept me there for almost an hour, asking personal questions. Where I lived. If I had a boyfriend. Did I party a lot? It felt wrong. But he's a cop, so what was I supposed to do? What happened after? I started seeing his patrol car everywhere. Outside my dorm. Near the student center. Following me when I drove. Then the text started. Unknown numbers saying things like, saw you at the library, or be careful walking alone at night. I know it's him. I showed her photos of the other victims. Explained the pattern. Watched her face go from scared to angry. He's done this to all these women. At least 14 that we know of. And he's facing federal charges. But he's out on bail and clearly hasn't stopped. What do? I made a decision that could either save her or put her in more danger. We catch him. On camera. With everything documented. Would you be willing to help? Ivy was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. If it stops him from doing this to someone else. Yes. I called Agent Thornton immediately. She wasn't happy. Ryder, he's under federal indictment. Using a civilian as bait is incredibly dangerous. He's actively stalking her right now. If we don't document it, he'll keep escalating. Then let us handle it. FBI surveillance. He'll spot federal agents. But he won't suspect a college student just living her normal life with a hidden camera. Thornton was silent, weighing the risks. If we do this, it's completely controlled. Full FBI backup. The second he makes physical contact, we move in. Agreed. We set it up carefully. Ivy wore a hidden camera and GPS tracker. FBI agents positioned around campus in unmarked vehicles. I watched from a surveillance van with Thornton and 2 other agents. For 3 days, nothing happened. Then on Thursday evening, Ivy texted, "He's outside my dorm. Just saw his car." Through the camera feed, we watched Crane's civilian sedan pull up to the curb. He sat there watching students come and go, waiting. Ivy walked out of her dorm like we'd planned, heading toward the parking lot. Crane followed at a distance on foot. All units stand by, Thornton said into her radio. Do not engage unless she's in immediate danger. Ivy reached her car. Crane approached from behind. Ivy, right. She turned, acting surprised. Officer Crane? Not on duty tonight. Just happened to be in the area. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Thought I'd check on you. Make sure you're being safe. I'm fine. Just heading to the library. This late? Campus can be dangerous after dark. Maybe I should follow you. Make sure you get there safely. That's not necessary. He moved closer, blocking her car door. I insist. Wouldn't want anything to happen to you. Pretty girl like you, all alone. He's making his move, Thornton said. Get ready. Ivy's voice stayed steady despite the fear I knew she felt. I appreciate the concern, but I'll be okay. See, that's what worries me. You college girls think you're invincible. Don't take threats seriously. His voice dropped lower. Don't take me seriously. Are you threatening me? Just making sure you understand how things work. Girls who cooperate, who are smart about who they trust, who don't go running to federal agents. He touched her arm. Those girls stay safe. Units move in, Thornton ordered. FBI vehicles converged from 3 directions. Agents emerged with weapons drawn. Federal agents. Step away from her. Hands where we can see them. Crane's face went from confident to panicked in seconds. He backed away from Ivy, hands rising. I wasn't doing anything. Just talking. You were threatening a witness in a federal case while out on bail, Thornton said, approaching with handcuffs. Dominic Crane, you're under arrest for witness intimidation and violation of bail conditions. This is entrapment. This is you proving you're exactly who we said you were. She cuffed him. You couldn't help yourself, could you? Even facing federal prison, you had to keep hunting. As they loaded Crane into a federal vehicle, Ivy collapsed against her car, shaking. I got out of the surveillance van and walked over. You did it. You caught him. I was so scared, she whispered. I know, but you just saved yourself and probably dozens of other women he would have targeted. Agent Thornton came over after Crane was secured. That was incredibly brave, Miss Turner. Your testimony, combined with this footage, just made our case airtight. What happens now? Crane's bail is revoked. He stays in federal custody until trial. And with this new evidence, his lawyers will be pushing for a plea deal. That night, the news broke. Indicted officer arrested again for witness intimidation. Eliza watched the coverage with tears streaming down her face. It's really over? Almost. Still have the trial. But he's in jail. He can't hurt anyone else. I held her close, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. 2 days later, Agent Thornton called with unexpected news. Crane's ex-wife just contacted us. She's been following the case. She has evidence about Crane that predates everything we have. Mr. Ryder, this woman's testimony is going to destroy him. Brooke Crane lived 3 states away in a small apartment that looked temporary, like she was ready to run at any moment. When she opened the door, I saw the same haunted look Eliza had after her assault. Mr. Ryder, come in. Agent Thornton was already there, folders spread across a small table. Brooke gestured for me to sit. I saw what happened to your wife on the news, she said quietly. What Dominic did to her. I'm so sorry. You were married to him? For 6 years. Biggest mistake of my life. She pushed a thick folder toward me. This is everything I kept hidden. Medical records. Police reports from other counties. Photos. A journal documenting every time he hurt me. I opened the folder. The first photo made my stomach turn. Brooke's face beaten beyond recognition. One eye swollen shut. Deep bruises covering her neck. He did this. That was our anniversary. I burned dinner accidentally. He didn't like waiting. Her voice was flat, emotionless. I called 911. His cop friends showed up, looked at me, looked at him in his uniform, and told me to be more careful. Said I probably fell. They covered for him. Every time. I reported him 7 times over 6 years. Nothing ever happened. His sergeant was his best friend. His captain went to his wedding. The entire department protected him. Agent Thornton spoke up. Brooke has agreed to testify about a pattern of domestic violence that predates all civilian complaints by years. There's more. Brooke pulled out hospital records. 5 years ago, I got pregnant. Dominic wasn't happy. Said a baby would ruin his plans. We fought about it constantly. One night, he pushed me down the stairs. I miscarried the next day. The room went silent. Just like my wife, I said quietly. When I saw the news about your wife losing her baby the exact same way, I knew I had to come forward. I've been hiding for 3 years. Changed my name. Moved states. But I can't let him keep doing this. Why didn't you leave sooner? I tried. Twice. He found me within days using police databases, traffic cameras, DMV records. He'd show up wherever I was and drag me back. The third time, I disappeared completely. New identity. No social media. No trail. I've been terrified he'd find me again. Agent Thornton leaned forward. Brooke's testimony establishes a decade-long pattern of violence. This isn't about one bad traffic stop. This is about a serial abuser who used his badge as a weapon. When's the trial? Brooke asked. 6 weeks. The prosecutor wants you on the stand. Your testimony will be devastating for Crane's defense. Brooke nodded, fear and determination mixing in her eyes. Good. I want him to see my face when I tell everyone who he really is. The weeks before trial moved fast. The prosecution built their case methodically. 14 victims ready to testify. Medical records. Photos. Recordings. FBI evidence of witness intimidation. But Crane's defense team was aggressive. They attacked every victim's credibility. Called them liars seeking attention or money. Painted Crane as a dedicated officer being persecuted by criminals and troublemakers. They went after Eliza especially hard. During her deposition, Crane's lawyer implied she was mentally unstable, suggested the miscarriage was natural, and she blamed Crane out of grief. She came home shaking. They made me feel like I was the one on trial. That's their strategy. Make the victims look unreliable so the jury doubts everything. What if it works? It won't. We have too much evidence. Too many victims. They can't discredit everyone. But I was worried. Juries could be unpredictable, especially when a decorated cop was the defendant. The trial started on a cold Monday morning. The courthouse was packed with media, protesters supporting Crane, and victims who'd come to watch justice finally happen. Eliza testified first. She was nervous but strong, describing exactly what Crane did to her. The prosecutor showed photos of her injuries. Medical records confirming the miscarriage. The jury looked horrified. Then Crane's lawyer cross-examined her. Mrs. Ryder, isn't it true your husband has PTSD from military service? Objection, the prosecutor said. Relevance. Goes to witness credibility, Your Honor. The judge allowed it. Answer the question, Mrs. Ryder. My husband served honorably. This has nothing to do with, just answer yes or no. Does he have PTSD? He has combat experience, yes. And isn't it possible you're exaggerating what happened because your husband convinced you to participate in his vendetta against Officer Crane? Eliza's voice was steady. My husband didn't convince me of anything. I know what that man did to me. I know what he took from us. Harper testified next, describing how Crane stalked and threatened her. The FBI played her wire recording. Hearing Crane's threats in his own voice was damning. Then Natalie, Jocelyn, and the other victims testified one by one. Same pattern, same behavior, same systematic abuse. The defense tried to poke holes in each story, but the sheer number of victims with identical experiences was overwhelming. Then Brooke took the stand. The courtroom went silent as she described years of domestic violence. The broken bones, the hospitalizations, the miscarriage caused by being pushed downstairs. And when you reported these incidents, what happened? The prosecutor asked. Nothing. The police protected him. Every time. Why didn't you leave? I tried. He used his access to law enforcement databases to track me down. I was trapped until I disappeared completely 3 years ago. Crane's lawyer stood for cross-examination. Miss Crane, isn't it true you signed a divorce settlement that included a non-disparagement clause? I did, because I was terrified and wanted to escape. So you're violating that agreement by testifying here. I'm telling the truth about what he did to me. Or you're seeking revenge for a failed marriage. Brooke looked directly at Crane for the first time. I'm here because he beat me for 6 years, caused me to lose a baby, and no one stopped him. And I won't let him hide anymore. The defense rested after calling character witnesses for Crane. Fellow officers who said he was professional. Community members who praised his service. But none of them could explain away the evidence. Closing arguments were powerful. The prosecutor laid out the pattern of abuse spanning a decade. Multiple victims. Medical evidence. Recordings. Systematic cover-up by internal affairs. This isn't about one bad day, he told the jury. This is about a man who used his badge as a license to terrorize innocent people, who destroyed lives without remorse, who thought he was above the law. It's time to prove him wrong. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty. On all counts. The word guilty echoed through the courtroom like thunder. Eliza grabbed my hand so tightly I felt her nails dig into my skin. Around us, victims who'd waited years for this moment broke down crying. Dominic Crane sat frozen at the defense table, his face drained of color. The decorated officer who thought he was untouchable had just been convicted on federal charges by a unanimous jury. Judge Quentin Walsh looked at Crane with undisguised disgust. Sentencing is set for 6 weeks from today. The defendant will remain in federal custody until that time. Bail is permanently revoked. U.S. Marshals moved in to take Crane away. As they cuffed him, he looked back at the courtroom one last time. His eyes found mine. The rage there was pure and violent, but also helpless. He'd lost everything. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed us. Agent Thornton handled most questions, but reporters kept pushing microphones toward Eliza and the other victims. How do you feel about the verdict? Eliza's voice was steady. Justice doesn't bring back my son, but knowing he can't hurt anyone else, that helps. Harper stood beside her. We weren't just fighting for ourselves. We were fighting for every woman he would have targeted in the future. Today, we won. The press coverage was massive. Decorated officer convicted on federal civil rights charges. 14 victims testify against corrupt cop. FBI investigation exposes systematic cover-up. But we weren't done yet. Lieutenant Blake Morrison still faced trial for conspiracy and evidence tampering. Agent Thornton had built a separate case against him using internal police records showing he'd buried complaints about Crane for years. Morrison's trial was shorter. The evidence was overwhelming. Email chains discussing problem complaints. Documents showing he'd pressured witnesses to recant. Testimony from Quinn Foster, the paralegal who'd leaked the original files. The jury convicted him in less than 3 hours. Then the department itself started crumbling. The FBI's investigation had uncovered 6 other officers who'd covered for Crane. All were fired. Captain Hayes resigned rather than face federal charges. The police chief was forced out by the mayor. Local news ran stories about systematic corruption. Community groups demanded reform. The city council launched its own investigation into the entire police department. Civil lawsuits followed. Eliza sued Crane and the department. So did Natalie, Harper, Brooke, and 10 other victims. The city tried to fight them at first, but public pressure was too strong. One by one, they settled. Eliza received a substantial payment and a formal apology from the city. Harper got her college tuition covered. Brooke received compensation for years of abuse that had been ignored. More importantly, the settlements forced department reforms. New complaint procedures, independent oversight, body cameras that couldn't be malfunctioned, training on de-escalation and accountability. Sentencing day arrived 6 weeks after the verdict. The courtroom was packed again. Judge Walsh took his seat and looked directly at Crane. Officer Crane, you were given extraordinary authority, a badge, A gun. The public's trust. You used that authority not to protect people, but to terrorize them. You targeted vulnerable women and hurt them without mercy. You destroyed lives without remorse. Crane sat stone-faced, refusing to show emotion. Your defense argued you were a dedicated officer who made mistakes. The evidence showed something very different. It showed a predator who used his badge as a weapon for over a decade. It showed a man who felt entitled to hurt people because he believed his position made him untouchable. Judge Walsh paused, letting the words sink in. This court has reviewed the victim impact statements. 14 women whose lives you destroyed. Women who still wake up terrified. Who can't trust police officers. Who lost babies, careers, peace of mind. The damage you caused is immeasurable. He opened a folder. For deprivation of rights under color of law, assault, battery, and witness intimidation, I sentence you to 18 years in federal prison. No parole eligibility for the first 12 years. After release, you will be barred from any law enforcement position for life. 18 years. Crane would be nearly 60 when he got out, his career destroyed, his reputation ruined, his freedom gone. Morrison received 12 years for conspiracy and obstruction. 6 other officers got sentences ranging from probation to 5 years, depending on their level of involvement. Outside the courthouse after sentencing, reporters asked if I felt the punishment was enough. My son is dead, I said quietly. No sentence will bring him back. But knowing Crane will spend the next 18 years in prison, knowing he can never hurt anyone else, that's something. Eliza spoke too. We didn't do this for revenge. We did it for justice. For accountability. To show that badges don't put you above the law. Agent Thornton announced the FBI would continue investigating other departments with similar patterns. This case proves that systematic police corruption can be prosecuted successfully. We're just getting started. That night, all the victims gathered at a small restaurant for a private dinner. Women who'd been strangers months ago, united by trauma, but now connected by something stronger, survival. Brooke raised her glass. To everyone who found the courage to speak up. To everyone who refused to stay silent, Harper added. Natalie looked around the table. 3 years ago, I thought I'd never be free of him. Now he's the one locked up while we're here living our lives. Eliza squeezed my hand under the table. We'd never get our son back. The grief would always be there. But we'd turned our pain into something meaningful. We'd stopped a monster, exposed corruption, helped change a broken system, and given other victims hope that speaking up could actually matter. The victory felt bittersweet. Justice had been served, but the scars remained. Harper still jumped at police sirens. Natalie was still in therapy. Brooke still had nightmares. And Eliza still touched her stomach sometimes, remembering the baby we'd lost. But we'd survived. We'd fought back. We'd won. And Dominic Crane, the decorated officer who thought he was invincible, learned that betraying the innocent always has a price. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it works quietly, methodically, building cases and gathering evidence until the moment comes to strike. And when it does, it destroys everything you thought protected you. 3 months after sentencing, I thought we were finally moving forward. Eliza had started painting again, something she hadn't done since before the assault. We'd planted a small garden in Adrian's memory. Life felt almost normal. Then my phone rang with an unknown number. Mr. Ryder? This is Brooke. I need to see you immediately. There's something I didn't tell the court. Something about Dominic that changes everything. We met at the same coffee shop where this all started. Brooke looked terrified, constantly checking over her shoulder like she expected someone to appear. What's wrong? She slid a USB drive across the table. After the trial, I went back to clean out the storage unit I'd been keeping for years. I found this hidden in a box of old documents. It's Dominic's personal files from before we got married. What's on it? Evidence that I wasn't his first victim. Not even close. Her hands shook. There was another woman. Before me. Her name was Violet. They dated for 2 years before I met him. My stomach dropped. What happened to her? That's what I need your help finding out. There are photos on that drive, medical records he'd kept, police reports, and a death certificate dated 8 years ago. I opened my laptop right there and plugged in the drive. What I found made my blood run cold. Violet Moss, 26 years old when she died. Photos showed a beautiful woman with dark hair and a bright smile. Then more photos, her face bruised, her arm in a cast. Medical reports documenting injuries over an 18-month period. He beat her too, I said quietly. For 2 years. But here's what's terrifying. Brooke pulled up a police report. 6 weeks before she died, she filed charges against him. Assault, battery, restraining order. The case was moving forward. What stopped it? She died. Single car accident. Drove off a bridge late at night. Police ruled it accidental. Case closed. Dominic inherited everything and moved on to me 6 months later. I stared at the death certificate. You think he killed her? Look at the timing. She files charges. Suddenly she's dead. Case disappears. And Dominic walks away free to start over with someone new. Brooke's voice cracked. What if I'm only alive because I never formally pressed charges while we were married? What if every woman who officially went after him ended up? She couldn't finish the sentence. I spent the next week investigating Violet's death. The accident report was thin. Car went off a bridge on a rainy night. No witnesses. Driver died on impact. But there were details that didn't add up. Violet's car had no mechanical issues. She wasn't drinking. The road was straight with good visibility. Yet somehow she just drove off a bridge. I contacted Agent Thornton. She listened to everything, reviewed the files, and made a call that reopened a case that had been closed for 8 years. If Crane killed this woman to stop her from testifying, that's first-degree murder. Federal life sentence. No parole possibility. The FBI exhumed Violet's body, brought in forensic experts, analyzed the car's black box data that hadn't been checked in the original investigation. What they found was damning. The car had been traveling at consistent speed when it suddenly accelerated hard, steering directly toward the bridge railing. Black box data showed no braking attempts. Toxicology found high levels of sedatives in Violet's system, drugs she'd never been prescribed. Someone had drugged her, put her in her car, and sent it off that bridge. Agent Thornton brought me to the federal building 6 weeks after reopening the case. We have enough for murder charges. But there's a problem. What? Crane's already serving 18 years. Adding murder charges means another trial. More victims testifying. More trauma. The prosecutor wants to know if you and the others are willing to go through that again. I called Eliza, then Brooke, then all the other victims. We held a video conference that night. He killed someone, Harper said, her voice shaking. Actually murdered a woman to avoid accountability. We can't let that go. But another trial means reliving everything, Natalie said. Facing him again. Having our lives examined again. Brooke spoke quietly. Violet didn't get justice. She died trying to stop him, and everyone just moved on. Don't we owe it to her to make sure the truth comes out? The vote was unanimous. We'd testify again. The murder trial was different. Darker. The evidence showed premeditation, planning, and a level of cold calculation that shocked even the jury who'd convicted him before. Prosecutors presented the timeline. Violet files charges. Crane faces losing everything. Suddenly she dies, and the case disappears. Then he moves on to his next victim, Brooke, and the pattern continues. This wasn't a crime of passion, the prosecutor told the jury. This was elimination of a threat. He murdered Violet Moss because she dared to hold him accountable, and he almost got away with it. Crane's defense was weak. They couldn't explain the sedatives in Violet's system. Couldn't explain why Crane kept files documenting his abuse of her. Couldn't explain the convenient timing of her death. The jury deliberated for 8 hours this time. When they returned, the forewoman's voice was steady. On the count of first-degree murder, we find the defendant guilty. Eliza started crying. Brooke collapsed in her seat. Around us, People who'd never met Violet wept for a woman who'd been forgotten until now. Judge Walsh called Crane back for additional sentencing 2 weeks later. This time, his voice was even harder. Officer Crane, your first conviction showed you were a predator who abused his authority. This conviction shows you're a murderer who killed to protect yourself. You took Violet Moss's life because she threatened to expose you. You robbed her family of justice for 8 years. He looked at the papers before him. For the murder of Violet Moss, I sentence you to life in federal prison without possibility of parole. This sentence will run consecutively to your previous 18-year sentence. Dominic Crane would die in prison. There would be no parole, no second chances, no redemption. As they led him away, he looked back one final time. The rage was gone. Now there was only emptiness. A man who destroyed so many lives finally facing the consequences. Outside, Violet's mother approached us. She was elderly, grief-worn, but her eyes held gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "For 8 years I've known something was wrong. Everyone said I was just a grieving mother who couldn't accept an accident. But you proved I was right. You gave my daughter justice." Brooke hugged her. "Your daughter was brave. She tried to stop him. We just finished what she started." That night, all of us gathered at Violet's grave. Her mother had brought flowers. We stood in silence, honoring a woman we'd never met, but whose courage had started the chain that led to Crane's downfall. "She was the first to really fight back," Eliza said quietly. "We owe her everything." Harper placed flowers on the grave. "She didn't die for nothing. Because of her, he'll never hurt anyone again." The hidden truth about Dominic Crane was finally complete. He wasn't just a corrupt cop. He was a killer who'd been protected by a broken system for years. But now that system had failed him, and justice, delayed for 8 years, had finally arrived. The final chapter of Dominic Crane's story unfolded over the next 6 months. The ripple effects of his conviction spread far beyond one courtroom. Lieutenant Blake Morrison's sentencing came first. Judge Walsh showed no mercy. "You weren't just complicit in Officer Crane's crimes. You actively enabled them. You buried complaints, intimidated witnesses, and destroyed evidence. You betrayed your oath and every victim who came to you seeking justice." 12 years in federal prison. Morrison collapsed when he heard the sentence, finally understanding the consequences of protecting a monster. The other 6 officers who'd covered for Crane received sentences ranging from probation to 5 years, depending on their involvement. Each one stripped of their badge permanently. But the consequences went deeper than prison sentences. The police department itself faced federal oversight. A consent decree forced them to implement sweeping reforms. Every complaint investigated by external reviewers. Body cameras mandatory. Use of force policies completely rewritten. Officers underwent retraining on civil rights and de-escalation. Captain Hayes, who dismissed my initial complaint, was charged with obstruction of justice. He took a plea deal, 3 years probation and permanent ban from law enforcement. He stood in court, gray and broken, admitting he'd prioritized protecting officers over protecting citizens. The department's union tried to fight the reforms, calling them overreach. But public support had evaporated. Community members packed city council meetings demanding accountability. The union eventually backed down, and several leadership positions were replaced by reformers. Civil lawsuits continued draining the city's budget. By the end, 14 victims received settlements totaling $8 million. The city's insurance rates skyrocketed. Budget cuts forced the department to scale back overtime and special units. Some officers complained the reforms went too far, made their jobs impossible. Others welcomed the changes, saying they were tired of bad cops making everyone look guilty. Agent Thornton's investigation expanded to 3 other departments where similar patterns emerged. 2 more officers faced federal charges. The FBI established a dedicated civil rights task force focused on police misconduct. Harper graduated college and immediately joined a nonprofit advocating for police reform. She traveled the country speaking to victims, teaching them their rights, showing them how to document abuse. Natalie became a paralegal specializing in civil rights cases. She used her experience to help other victims navigate the legal system she'd once feared. Brooke wrote a book about her experience. It became a bestseller, sparking conversations about domestic violence and institutional protection of abusers. She donated all proceeds to domestic violence shelters. The other victims found their own paths to healing. Some returned to normal lives quietly. Others became activists. All of them carried scars, but also strength earned through survival. Eliza and I established the Adrian Ryder Foundation in our son's memory. We provided legal assistance to victims of police brutality who couldn't afford lawyers, funded body camera initiatives, supported legislation for independent oversight of police departments. Our first year, we helped 12 families navigate complaints against officers. 7 cases resulted in discipline or termination. 3 led to criminal charges. We couldn't bring Adrian back, but we could make his short life mean something. Violet's mother became involved too. She attended every speaking engagement, telling her daughter's story, ensuring people understood the cost of silence. "My daughter died trying to stop him," she'd say. But her death wasn't meaningless. It led to all of you fighting back. It led to justice. A year after Crane's final sentencing, all the victims gathered for a memorial service at Violet's grave. We planted a tree there, an oak that would grow strong and lasting, like the courage it took to bring down a corrupt system. Harper spoke first. "We were strangers brought together by trauma, but we became something more, proof that victims can fight back and win." Natalie added, "The system failed us, but we didn't fail each other." Brooke's voice was steady. "Dominic Crane thought his badge made him invincible. He learned he was wrong. And every corrupt officer watching this case learned the same lesson." Eliza squeezed my hand as she spoke. "My son never got to live. But because of what we did, other children will grow up safer. Other women won't have to face what we faced. That's Adrian's legacy." I looked at the women standing around that grave, survivors who'd found strength in unity, who'd refused to let their pain be for nothing. "Justice took 8 years for Violet," I said. "It took months for us. But it came. Not because the system worked perfectly, but because we made it work. Because we refused to stay silent. Because we turned our grief into action. The reforms we fought for became a model for other cities. Departments across the country studied what happened in our town, learning from both the failures and the solutions. Officer training programs added case studies about Crane's crimes, teaching future cops what happens when the thin blue line becomes a wall protecting predators. Dominic Crane's name became synonymous with police corruption. His case was cited in legislation, academic papers, and training materials. He wanted to be remembered as a hero cop. Instead, he became a cautionary tale about what happens when authority meets entitlement and faces no accountability, until victims find their voices and refuse to be silenced. The final numbers told the story: 1 corrupt officer, 14 direct victims, 1 murdered woman, 1 unborn child killed, dozens of lives destroyed, but also 18 years plus life in prison, department-wide reforms, federal oversight, 8 officers fired, millions in victim compensation, hundreds of people helped by the foundation, and most importantly, a system forced to change because victims demanded better. The battle wasn't over. Corruption still existed. Bad cops still wore badges. But now there was a roadmap for fighting back. And every victim who saw our story learned something crucial. You're not powerless. The system can be beaten. Justice is possible. You just have to be brave enough to demand it. The memorial tree we planted at Violet's grave grew faster than expected. Within months, its branches stretched toward the sky like reaching hands, a living reminder that even from tragedy, something strong and lasting can grow. Eliza stood under those branches on what would have been Adrian's 2nd birthday. She wasn't crying anymore, just quiet, one hand resting on the trunk. I used to think the pain would never stop, she said softly, that I'd carry this emptiness forever. And now I carry him differently, not as grief, but as purpose. Every person we help through the foundation, every reform that passes, every victim who finds courage, that's him. That's Adrian's impact on the world. She turned to me with something I hadn't seen in over a year, genuine peace. We didn't just survive what Crane did to us. We turned it into something that matters. Harper visited us that week with news. She'd been hired by a national civil rights organization to develop training programs for police accountability. Her program would launch in 17 cities. None of this would exist without what we did, she said, eyes bright with excitement. Departments are actually listening now. They're scared of becoming the next viral corruption case. Natalie called from her new law office. She'd just won her first civil rights case, a woman brutalized during a traffic stop, just like Eliza. The officer was fired, and the victim received a settlement and an apology. I used your playbook, Natalie said. Document everything. Find other victims. Build the pattern. It worked. Brooke's book hit the New York Times bestseller list. She appeared on talk shows, in documentaries, at congressional hearings on police reform. Her face became synonymous with surviving and fighting back. Survivors are reaching out from everywhere, she told me during one call. Women in abusive relationships with cops. People too scared to report. I'm connecting them with resources, lawyers, support groups. We're building a network. The other victims found their own versions of healing. Some returned to quiet lives, content with having been heard. Others became advocates, speakers, counselors. Each one carried forward the lesson we'd learned together. Silence protects abusers, but speaking up can change everything. The Adrian Ryder Foundation grew beyond anything we'd imagined. In our second year, we helped 43 families, funded body camera programs in 6 cities, sponsored legislation in 3 states for independent police oversight boards. We hired Quinn Foster, the paralegal who'd leaked the original files, as our director of legal services. She built a team of lawyers who took cases other firms wouldn't touch. Victims too poor, cases too complex, odds too long. We're winning 60% of our cases, Quinn reported during our annual board meeting. That's unheard of in civil rights litigation against police departments. Violet's mother became our most active volunteer. Despite her age, she attended community meetings, spoke to groups, and personally counseled other families who'd lost loved ones to police violence. My daughter didn't get to see justice, she'd say, but I've watched dozens of families receive what we never did. That's her legacy. That's what keeps me going. The reforms we fought for spread nationwide. The consent decree governing our local department became a template. Other cities adopted similar measures voluntarily, afraid of federal intervention if they didn't. Training academies added modules on accountability. Use of force policies changed. Body camera requirements expanded. Complaint procedures improved. External oversight boards gained real power. It wasn't perfect. Bad cops still existed. Corruption still happened. But the wall of silence had cracks now. Victims had roadmaps. The system could be challenged. And Dominic Crane sat in a federal supermax prison, serving life without parole. His appeals were denied. His name was listed on prisoner databases as an example of the most serious civil rights violations. Other inmates knew what he'd done. Former cops in prison faced their own kind of justice. He'd wanted to be remembered as a decorated hero. Instead, his name became a warning. On the 3rd anniversary of our son's death, Eliza and I returned to the hospital where we'd lost him. But this time, we weren't there to grieve. We were there to dedicate the Adrian Ryder Memorial Clinic for domestic violence and assault victims. Free medical care, free counseling, safe spaces, legal advocacy, everything we wished had existed when Eliza needed it. The director, a trauma specialist named Dr. Paige Sutton, spoke at the dedication. This clinic will serve thousands of victims every year. Because of one couple who turned their tragedy into action, Countless lives will be saved. Eliza cut the ribbon with steady hands. No tears, just strength. That night, we sat in Adrian's garden watching the sunset. 3 years ago, we'd been broken people drowning in injustice. Now we were something different, not healed completely, but transformed by what we'd endured and what we'd accomplished. Do you think it was worth it? Eliza asked quietly. Everything we went through. We changed the system, stopped a killer, helped hundreds of people, built something lasting in Adrian's name. I took her hand. We turned the worst thing that ever happened to us into the most meaningful thing we've ever done. She leaned against me. I still miss him. Every day. So do I. But he matters. His life, short as it was, sparked all of this. That's not nothing. The sun disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Tomorrow, another victim would call our foundation seeking help. Another city would request our reform template. Another survivor would find courage because they heard our story. The fight against corruption and abuse would continue. But now there were warriors ready to fight it. And they knew something crucial. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's being terrified and speaking up anyway. Before I end this story, I want to ask you something important. What moment in this journey hit you the hardest? When did you feel the most anger, the most hope, or the most satisfaction? Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from, your city or country. I love knowing this story reached people around the world. If this story of justice and revenge moved you, show some love with a like and subscribe. There are more epic, thrilling, and satisfying revenge stories coming your way, and you won't want to miss them. And here's the big question. What kind of stories do you want to hear next? Military revenge? Family betrayal? Cheating exposed? Corruption destroyed? Tell me in the comments what themes and stories you're craving, and I'll create content specifically for you. Until we meet again in the next thriller packed with twists, justice, and epic revenge, stay strong, stay smart, and never let anyone silence your voice. Take care.